What's going on, guys? It's Ethan, the backwards hat traditional bow hunter. I want to do a video today talking about gap shooting. The how and the why I suggest it as being the best shooting and aiming style for a beginner trying to get into traditional archery. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so why? Why shoot gap? To me, the answer is pretty simple. I shot instinctive for on and off for a long time. Any shooting I did trad in and around shooting a compound was all done instinctive, and I was never really good at it at all. And this last year, whenever I really wanted to dive down the rabbit hole of trad and trying to figure it out, do it correctly, and learn how to do it the most effective way possible, I stumbled onto the push archery film that Matt Cernzak did. It was one of the first real big videos that they did over at the push, and he went over all the various aiming styles, from gap to instinctive to split vision and anything in between. And I kind of gave it some thought, but not really. I was still suffering so bad from target panic at the time. Whenever I did try to do a little point on shooting with the stick bow, I was like, yeah, that's not really gonna work either. So anyway, fast forward again to this last year, whenever I said, this is it, I'm putting down the compound, picking up the stick, and I'm gonna make this happen. I started shooting instinctive again, and I shot my first deer that way as well. And to me, it's just, you have to either have a knack for it, or you have to shoot so many thousands of arrows in order to develop that skill to get to that point of like throwing a baseball. I pick the spot that I want to throw to, and that's where it goes. That's not that easy for me. There are guys out there that can pick up a stick bow and shoot instinctive really quickly and shoot it very well, because everybody learns different and processes sight alignment, sight picture differently. Threw a clicker on my bow, call me a cheater, whatever, I don't really care. Threw a clicker on my bow because I have had crippling target panic with a compound. I knew I was going to need it, and said, I'm going to learn to shoot gap. I don't see any other way of shooting accurately or feeling confident and comfortable in doing this unless I do it that way. And I started shooting gap, shooting it right, and I haven't looked back since. And I'm here to tell you that I went from, I'm not that great of a shot. I'm gonna first say that. I'm nothing special. I was always a fairly decent shot with a compound, and kind of, take the things well, but some things take more work for me than others. I'm not a fantastic shot by any means, or an expert, but I went from not being able to hit a stop sign at 20 yards consistently, shooting instinctive, to shooting arrows, or touching arrows that is, and busting knocks at 20-25 yards by shooting gap. And that's what really made me fall head over heels in love with shooting a stick, because I realized what I was missing and how accurate you can really be. Now, I want to stop right here and say that instinctive is not bad. I don't knock anybody that shoots instinctive. It is a talent. I know some guys that are extremely deadly shots, and they're instinctive shooters. Why I think that gap shooting is what I definitely suggest for a beginner is because I am here to help people, and that's why I'm doing this channel. I want to encourage people to shoot trad. I want to encourage people to bow hunt, to enjoy the sport, and I just feel it in my soul that more people would pick up a stick and enjoy it as much as I do, and it would completely change them. I sold my compound, guys. I switched completely. I mean, there's no going back for me unless I really wanted to, but I don't want to. Shooting gap method or fixed crawl or whatever, having some reference of aim your arrow to the target is the answer, in my humble opinion, for beginners getting into shooting a stick, because you can shoot well quicker. I'm not saying that you're going to shoot 2-inch groups at 20 yards your first week of shooting. That's probably not going to happen. Having some kind of aiming reference and a concept ahead of time of where your arrow is going to impact based upon where the tip was, where you release the arrow, it's going to at the very least put you on paper far quicker and get you shooting decent groups and maybe even ready for hunting a lot sooner than instinctive will. Because again, I'm not knocking instinctive, but if you want to shoot that way, that's totally cool. I commend you for that. But if you want to shoot instinctive and shoot it well, you're looking at, I would say, probably a minimum of a year, as far as me feeling comfortable telling you that, a minimum of a year before you should feel ready to go hunting that way and be flinging arrows at animals. So anyway, I've done enough talking about the why. Let's get into how you find your gap and what that looks like setting up a gap method of shooting. So I'm gonna kind of fumble through this a little bit because I already kind of know what my gaps are, and I'm gonna kind of already know where I need to aim to get things close in order to demonstrate for you guys, but I'll try to make this explanatory as I possibly can. It's not over complicated or intuitive, but doing it this way with a cardboard box or whatever, with a straight line and 6-inch increments to start with. I don't know anybody that's a beginner that's going to be able to shoot within a 6-inch increment. This is a good place to start, and it will help you reference your impact point. You know, aiming at, let's say, the first line up from the bottom, and then seeing where your arrow impacts after that, and having those exact 6-inch reference marks or hash marks. It's going to help you dial that in a little bit and get on paper a little quicker if you do it this way. So I'm going to aim at the bottom hash mark, and I'm expecting I'm probably going to hit somewhere between the 3rd and 4th hash mark up there in the top portion of the box. So let's see what happens here. Like I said, this is 10 yards. About what I thought. So yeah, I'm about that 16 inches ish at 10 yards, which is what I pretty well figured. And as you see, I was aiming, like I said, at that first mark and impacted just below the 3rd one up. That could have been me a little bit too. I think that's a little bit more than what it actually is. I probably flinched some, but kind of get the gist of what I'm getting at. It makes it really quick to figure out. So if I knew that the tip of my arrow was on that first mark, I'm already gauged it. I already know now what I have to do after one shot. And your arrow's going to drift and move around, but when you get to the point where you have all this figured out, your brain's going to keep your arrow where it needs to be better than you can. So just trust the drift and let it happen. But in this process, focus on trying to keep your tip of your arrow as close to that first mark as possible, so you're getting accurate readings on how your arrow is rising at whatever distance you're shooting. So that's 10. Let's go ahead and move back to 15. Okay, so I'm back at 15 now. I'm just going to leave my other arrow there just for the sake of this video, and so you can kind of see what's going on whenever we get down there. I know that I'm pretty well that 24 inches of gap from 15 all the way back to 25 yards. This setup is shooting pretty hot with this arrow setup and my weight and everything else that I've going right now. It's chooching along pretty well. It's shooting a little bit higher than I want it to. I'm somewhere around a 40-yard point on, which is a little excessive. So I'm gonna have to aim at the bottom of the cardboard probably, and I expect my arrow to impact somewhere up around where that first one did. So let's see what happens. This is 15 yards. Pulled that shot a little bit. That was my fault, impacted a little bit left, but the level is there. You can kind of see what's happening. That's about a 23 inches of rise, or a 23-inch gap at 15 yards. I'll go ahead and shoot another one just because I don't feel very good about that shot. I'm not trying to hide anything. I flinch and pull shots just like everybody else does, so I'm gonna shoot it again. That's 15, so let's go ahead and move back to 20. All right, so I'm now back at 20 yards. Again, I'll apologize for the wind. It's pretty rough today, but I hope you guys can hear me okay. I'm not gonna know until this whole thing's filmed, so. Again, like I said, my gap is pretty well the same, all the way from 15 to 25, but I'm just gonna go ahead and shoot 20 for a demonstration. Right up there at that 24-inch mark, and only about maybe an inch and a half to the left. That was a lot better shot. So I'm not going to do a whole lot more shooting. I think you guys kind of get the point. There's no way for me to really tell you what yours is going to be until you actually get out there and try it, but you can see how, if I was shooting instinctive, obviously I wouldn't be doing any of this. I would probably be shooting hundreds of shots at 5 yards, and then 10, and then 15, and then 20, and I probably wouldn't ever feel real comfortable making a shot past 15 or 20 yards at the farthest. I'm not saying that I am comfortable taking very shots as it is now. I would say my maximum effective range right this second on an animal is probably around that between 25 and 30 mark. Your maximum effective range, as Aaron Snyder described it, and I definitely agree 110%. Whatever distance you can walk out the door and your first cold shot, and if you can hit within a paper plate every single time, always, regardless of the conditions, or how, if you're tired, had too much caffeine, you know, jittery, whatever distance that you can hit that paper plate every time cold, that is your maximum effective range. So if that's 15 yards for some, then, or 10, then that's just what it is. That's where you're at. I want to encourage you guys, if you're watching this and you shoot a compound, you've been thinking about shooting a stick, but you know, you've kind of fooled around with one, and maybe you're just like, man, I just don't shoot it very good. It takes a lot of work. Well, it does take a lot of work. If you're intimidated by it because you're like, man, just the whole idea of, you know, just drawing back and flinging an arrow, how accurate can it really be? That's where I would say explore some of these other options like shooting gap. It's not cheating. Don't feel like you're taking the easy route. And any of you guys out there in the trad community that are harping on guys or giving people grief that shoot gap, you really need to knock it off. I'm just going to say that now. We're all trad. Trad is not set parameters in order to fall into, or a box you have to be stuck inside of. If you're shooting a single string bow with no sights and off your fingers, you're trad, in my personal opinion, and really and truly that's just the way that it is. So if you need to shoot gap in order to shoot well and feel confident, do it. If you need to string walk in order to do that, do it. If you just like shooting instinctive and you're good at it, do it. There's people that are far better shots than I am that shoot instinctive. So anyway, this video has been well long enough, and I hope I gave a pretty good explanation of shooting gap and why I suggest it for beginners, why it works so well for me and others. It works perfectly fine for hunting situations, and I don't know anybody that shoots gap or heard of anyone that shoots gap that that's cost them an animal or anything like that. If anything, their kills and ethical shots went up. So anyway, that's enough about gap. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you're on the fence about getting a stick, don't be on the fence anymore. I'm just gonna tell you to do it, and you're not gonna be disappointed. I'm telling you that right now. I would know. I shot compound, like I said, for years and sold it to do this, and I have absolutely zero regrets. I'm having way more fun than I ever did shooting a wheel bow. So anyway, thanks for watching the video, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, Backwards Hat Traditional Bowhunter. Share it around if you want to. I'm just really trying to help other people, especially beginners like I kind of still am, and help navigate the waters of traditional archery. Some things are kind of difficult, but I snow shovel a lot of information all the time. When I really get into something, I watch, read, look at, listen to everything that is out there until I am satisfied, and I'm usually not ever satisfied. So I've compiled a ton of information and kind of necked it down into what works for me, and I would like to help anybody that I can in relaying some of that information and helping it make sense to any of the beginners out there or avid shooters as well. So as I said, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon so you're notified when my next videos drop. Thanks for watching, guys. Shoot straight and stay safe.